Hey guys, this is Eric with Pixel Rookie, and I picked up this awesome game called Rimworld a while back. I've been putting a lot of time into playing it. Now this game is pretty complicated if you pick it up for the first time and you're not familiar with the gameplay mechanics, so I wanted to make a video as a quick start guide to help you understand some of the basic fundamentals when starting the game. My hope is by the end of this video, you'll have a solid understanding of how to begin a game of Rimworld, even with zero knowledge of how to play the game, and have the foundations to build a dependable colony that can withstand whatever Rimworld throws at you. If you want to skip me going over the creation of a new game, jump ahead to the timestamp noted below to get right into the gameplay. Okay, so back to creating a new game. Here you have a choice between 3 different scenarios to start off your game. You have the options of custom scenarios too, but we're going to stick with the classic Rimworld adventure, which is called Crash Landed. Next, we choose which AI storyteller we want for our game. Let me explain. Rimworld's story is driven by one of these AIs who will determine what kind of events happen throughout your game. They control how the pacing will flow. You have 3 storytellers to choose from. Cassandra Classic, who will progress like you would expect from the standard game. Events will start off easier and gradually get harder. Phoebe Chillax. Her events progress slower and easier, usually giving you more time in between events. And finally, Randy Random. Randy doesn't really give a fuck about you or your colonists. There's no rhyme or reason between his pacing, and you can get really lucky or screwed anytime with this storyteller, especially at the beginning of the game. For beginners, I definitely recommend Phoebe to get the hang of the game. Next, we choose our difficulty setting. We're going to choose some challenge, so I'll have a pretty laid-back experience. Keep in mind, you can change your difficulty and storyteller settings anytime in the game using your options. Next, you'll create the actual world you land on with a seed. I always randomize it, and I keep the other settings the same. You can adjust and cater it to your liking, but we'll keep it as is for this example. Now once the world is actually generated, you can choose where you crash land. There's a lot of different biomes you can choose from. I personally like choosing the temperate forest, and if you're just getting started, I think it's a great biome to be in. One of the biggest things I look out for when choosing my crash landing is the growing period, and if you're new to the game, I would personally recommend choosing an area that's set to year-round, so you run a much lower risk of starving to death while you're figuring out what to do. Now that we've chosen our location, it's time to choose our colonists. When creating your characters, there's a few things you want to review. Some colonists are incapable of certain tasks, and they also have specific traits that will positively or negatively impact their stats. They might also have health issues that you want to keep a lookout for. If they have a small or large fire icon by any of their skills, that means they're passionate about that skill, and they're going to learn it faster. You ideally want to have a well-rounded starting team that has a variety of skills. You can see your overall team skills at the bottom of the page. You'll have a list of random pawns to choose from initially, and you can also cycle through the randomized key until you find a nice mix of the 3 colonists that you want to start with. It's nice if you can have high growth, shooting, medical, and construction skills between the 3 of them. I installed a mod called Prepare Carefully that allows you to create your own starting characters and stats, and I highly recommend it if you want to customize your starting team with a little more detail. That's what we'll do here. Now that we have our entire setup complete, let's get started. Keep in mind though, I have a few other mods installed that add some additional visuals to the colonists like beards, different hairstyles, even little arms that add a little more life to them. Most of these mods are just quality of life tweaks and not very major to the core gameplay. I have a list of them in the description below if you're interested in finding out more. Okay, so as soon as we start, the game lets you know that your escape pods from a crashed ship have landed in a distant Rimworld. From here, your men come out of their pods with some starting goods. There are a few things we want to do here from the very start, so if you press the spacebar, you're going to pause the game. There's a lot of information that's shared with you in the corners of your screen. You'll see the information of where your mouse is highlighted, the date, temperature, and time of day, for example. You can adjust the speed of your game by pressing the 1, 2, and 3 keys. You usually spend most of the time on the fastest speed though. Okay, so your starting equipment from the crash will have a rifle, a pistol, and a knife. If we look at Hot Dog's skills, we can see that he's the best shooter in the group, so we want to make sure we select him and right-click on the rifle and have him equip it. We'll have Stompy equip the pistol, and since King Size is our toughest melee fighter, he'll equip the knife for now. If you look at all these items that dropped with us, they have a little red X on them, which means they're forbidden. We want to fix that. If you select all the different items, you can press the F key, and that'll allow you to gather these resources. That's all we'll need to worry about with them for now. While the game's still paused, we need to zoom out and make an important decision: where to actually build our colony. While skimming the area, make sure to select any ship chunks and choose to deconstruct them for additional resources. There are a few areas that look pretty good, but this area here seems like an excellent place for a base. You can create a funnel so when raiders attack you, they can be bottlenecked and not hit you in multiple directions. You also want to try and think of how you want to progress your base so you can scale with any growth from new colonists. Now that we've determined where we'll be building our colony, we want to create a temporary shelter for men to sleep at. If you go down to the bottom of the screen and select Architect, then Structure, we'll simply build a wooden wall against the mountain and add a door and 3 beds. This will suffice for the first few days. Now that we have that in place, we need to establish a few zones. First, we'll build a stockpile zone. I plan on building the majority of the base in the mountain, so I like to have all my resources right out front. This is where all of our collected items will be stored. Now I want to build a few different growing zones. I like to make at least 5 total starting off so we can grow a few different items. Once you lay out the growing zones, we'll select each one of them and change it to a different crop. It's important that one of your colonists has a growing skill of 8 or higher because we want to grow heal root right away. We only have a limited supply of med packs from our starting items, so this will work as a substitute once we run out. I like to grow potatoes, rice, strawberries, heal root, and cotton. Cotton's important because it can be used to create clothing and other useful items for your colonists. You'll also start with the random pet that can be trained, so make sure you select your pet and choose what you want to train them in. I like focusing on its haul skill first, so that damn animal will actually help around the base and transport items. Now we have our basic starting area plotted out. Let's resume the game. Your colonists will immediately start going to work on their different tasks based on what they're actually tasked to do. There are certain minerals in the mountains that can be harvested like the steel here. It's good to mine that out, and since this is going to be the entrance of my mountain base, I want to clear all of it out anyways. You go to orders and choose mine to select the area you want to mine. Like I said earlier, your colonists will prioritize their work based on what they're tasked out to do. If you go to the work tab, you'll see a list of all the different tasks they're assigned to. The furthest to the left has the highest priority all the way to the far right, which is the lowest priority. If any task is pending that has a higher priority, they'll focus on that first. That makes sense, right? Now we want to get a little more specific with what roles our colonists are set to do, so we're going to click on the numbers in the corner of the tab to drill this down a little bit further. Again, this layout's just a little different because of a mod that cleans it up. Now that we've toggled this on, we can raise and lower the priorities even further. You can set tasks from 1 being the highest priority, all the way to 9 being the lowest priority. Without mods, you can only set them between 1 and 4. Now that we've set our roles and tasks up a little better, Hot Dog is a primary hunter and miner, King Size is a primary warden and cook, while Stompy is the main doctor, researcher, and animal handler. They'll still need to perform other tasks, but they'll focus on these specific tasks while they're pending instead of lower priority ones. Something else to point out. You can set specific schedules for your colonists. This is great for having a day and night shift. You can see that Hot Dog is actually a night owl and gets a boost for being up during the night, so we want to make him sleep during the day. Also, keep in mind that you won't get a mood debuff for sleeping during the day and working throughout the night, even if you don't have a trait like Night Owl. Let's change Hot Dog's sleep schedule, and this will help his mood out. Now that we have a temporary place for everyone to sleep, a stockpile for storing our items, and crops growing to sustain our colony's food supply, we can plan the layout of our base. If you go to orders, you can choose plan and create a full layout for future building and mining. This is a great place to build a wall for defense to funnel in any raiders that attack. We'll plan to separate out a second wall beyond the crops to make a second line of defense into the actual base. You can also plan out how you want the layout of the inside of your base to look. This is a good enough start, and you can see that this will be where we'll slowly be working towards while we build it out. Now that we're building out the inside of our base, we'll want to run electricity to it. We'll do this with solar power for now and build one solar generator. That should be sufficient. Solar generators will gather energy from the sun during the day, but they'll not do too much good without bringing that electricity into your base. First, we're going to build out a storage area for the excess electricity and build a battery. Obviously, solar power won't gather electricity during the night, so we're going to have ample energy to run when it's dark outside. We'll need to run a power conduit from our energy source to our battery and into our base. This is where our electronics will gather energy from. Always keep your batteries and electronics over a roofed area. If it rains on exposed batteries, you're going to have a bad time. Now that we have a source of electricity, a battery to store extra power and conduits running into our base, we can build out a freezer to store all of our grown food, raw meat from hunted animals, and prepared meals. If you go to temperature and choose a cooler, we'll place 2 of them in this empty hole we made outside of our designated freezer area. Keep in mind that 1 cooler would be sufficient for this space, but as you scale up your storage space, 1 cooler might not be enough. I prefer to have 2 from the start. Rotate the cooler so the blue area is facing inside of the freezer and the red is outside. This indicates that the heat will flow outside while the cool air goes inside. We must set the temperature down so it actually keeps the freezer cold. If you select each freezer, you can decrease the temperature down. We want to keep it at least 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius. We want to keep the freezer sealed, so we'll do this by creating a double door chamber that ensures your cold air doesn't escape while colonists go in and out. The area directly outside of the freezer will be our kitchen. Go into production, and we'll choose the electric stove since we already have a source of power, and build it in the middle of the room. When cooking meals, I like to make sure that I have plenty of prepared food in stock. In order to do this, we'll select the stove and click Add Bill. We're just going to cook simple meals for now. Okay, so instead of cooking a specific number of meals, we want to choose do X times, and instead choose the option to do until you have X. We'll increase this number to 20. So what we're doing here is setting a build that will prioritize cooking simple meals until we have 20 in stock. Every day your colonists will consume meals throughout the day, so once we get below 20, the build will trigger your colonists to automatically make more. Of course, now we need to actually store our food in the freezer. We'll go back into the zones and create a new stockpile zone. Okay, well while we're setting up our stockpile for our freezer, we got raided, so we'll need to deal with this new threat. Right now, our base is not really prepared for an attack and we have no defenses. Let's fix that quickly by going to security and creating a few sandbags for some cover. Our cover is set up and the raider is getting close to us. In order to control your colonists for combat, you need to select who you want to draft and press the R key. This will allow you to choose them and right click to a destination for them to either move or attack. Hot Dog and Stompy are the only two with guns right now, so we'll drop them and move them in front of the sandbags. Fortunately for us, the raider was dispatched as soon as he got into firing range. We're not always so lucky. Once the combat's over, make sure you select all the colonists you drafted and undraft them, or they'll just stand there like idiots until you actually undraft them. But take a look at this. The raider wasn't killed. He's only incapacitated, so we can actually capture him and take him as prisoner. We currently don't have a prison cell, so we'll quickly build a bed in our cave and use that temporarily. Once the bed is complete, we select it and choose for the prisoner's option. This changes the room into a prison cell, and we can capture our raider now. Looking over Grill, our newly captured prisoner's stats, he has an addiction to the drug luciferium. That's not good. He's also lazy, a misogynist, and incapable of cooking, firefighting, and mining. So, not the best stats, but he could still be useful. When you have someone prisoner, you can choose what their fate is. If you select them and choose prisoner, you can choose if they receive treatment for injuries or not, release them, and you can choose to chat and recruit them. Grill's recruitment difficulty is high, so it might not be worth the efforts, but we're gonna try anyways. Okay, so before we were rudely interrupted by Grill, we were setting up our freezer for our food. Let's get back to that. So we set up our zone, so let's select it and choose storage. First thing we want to do is set the priority to preferred. That way they can still store food and other stockpiles, but they'll prioritize this area first. Let's clear all the items that can be stored in here, so we'll only allow foods, and we'll also go into corpses and choose animal corpses. That's it. Your colonists will bring their food they harvest into the freezer and it will be preserved. Now, I like to put my butcher's table in the freezer too. You get a slight work speed penalty being in the cold, but animal corpses are stored in here and you can easily butcher them and leave the meat in the freezer. We'll want to set a bill for your butcher table too, but we want to butcher all the animals we hunt as they come in. Let's add a bill to the butcher table and change do X times to do forever. Anytime you bring an animal corpse to your freezer, they'll automatically butcher them for their meat. Another quick tip for saving some time. If you put 2 stools by your stove, you can make them a stockpile zone 2 just for raw foods. Make this zone a higher priority than your freezer. Your colonists will put food there, and your cook doesn't have to move into the freezer or move at all because they can grab the food that's directly on the stools to cook. Something else we probably should have done earlier is put a roof over our outdoor stockpile. This will prevent our stored items from deteriorating from being exposed to the elements. If you go to the zones, you can choose build a roof area and drag that zone over your stockpile. Now any materials you collect won't rot away. As you encounter more raiders and people start dying, you want to have a place to dump their corpses if you're not burying your foes. Let's create a dumping ground for that. Go into zones and choose dumping stockpile zone, and let's use this open area outside of our base to dump our unwanted items like corpses. I see no need to bury my enemies. When you get a little more established, it's important you get a research bench to unlock new technology to help out your colony. Once one is built, you can click on your research tree tab and choose what to focus on researching. Again, my research tab looks a little different because of a mod. It's mostly a visual overhaul though. I like to focus on getting gun turrets first, so let's start researching everything to unlock that technology. Unfortunately, our prisoner Grill died while in captivity because of his addiction to luciferium, but there are other ways to get new colonists. Sometimes you'll have events where you encounter other pawns that are willing to join your colony, or there's a crashed escape pod with an injured pawn you can rescue. Now, this may sound counterintuitive, but when you find an injured pawn that you want to rescue and recruit to your colony, you still want to capture them and bring them to a prison cell. If you choose to heal them without capturing them, they're not going to become colonists, they'll just get up and leave when they're healthy again. When you build up your basic living quarters, it's good to build a dedicated med bay and some prison cells. You can see we have 5 beds set up that have been designated to medical. I'm going to build a few smaller rooms that will act as prison cells. You never know when you capture a few raiders after a firefight, and you want to have ample space. Don't forget to update your work priorities as your colony grows. The more colonists you have, the more work you can delegate out and prioritize for specific pawns. To help keep your colonist mood up, you can build a sculptor's table and build pieces of art to add beauty to your rooms. I would recommend building large sculptures because they take up the same amount of space as small ones, but they usually add more beauty. At this point, you should be in a good position with your colony. You should be able to build a good base to defend, have enough food and storage to feed everyone, and a good understanding of the basics of Rimworld. If you're feeling daring or would like a bigger challenge, go ahead and update your difficulty or storyteller and try colonies on other biomes. This game has so much to offer, and this is really just scratching the surface. Hopefully you'll see your colony grow and evolve into a huge base. Or you might accidentally piss off a bunch of alien bugs that kill your entire colony. You never really know with Rimworld. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if there are other areas in Rimworld you'd like me to make a tutorial on, let me know in the comments below. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, have a good one.